Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar called Mobile in the Workplace, What Are You So Afraid of? I'm Debbie House, Editor-in-Chief of Retail TouchPoints, and I'll be moderating today's presentation. We're honored to be joined today by David Schrader from Empower, who will share insights into the good, bad, and the ugly of mobile implementation. This webinar event is the fifth in a series of 9 presented as part of the Retail TouchPoints Strategy and Planning series. During this series, attendees have had the opportunity to hear from leading industry experts who are discussing the most important topics on retailers' minds today as they finalize holiday strategies and plan for 2016 success. By registering for one session, attendees have access to all complimentary presentations live and on demand. So if you're not able to attend one or more of the sessions, they're available free to all registrants. You can access them on demand at your convenience. And to learn more, go to the Retail TouchPoints website. We also welcome you to follow this and all other Strategy and Planning Series webinars on Twitter using the RSPS15 hashtag. So for today's presentation, we're using the On24 platform. Right now, you should be viewing the On24 dashboard, which shows the live viewing screen. By clicking on the Questions widget on the right-hand side of the screen, you can type in questions during the live presentation and press Submit. You'll also find a widget named Resources under Questions. There you can download assets our presenters have provided for you. All you have to do is click on the resource and it'll automatically download. And be sure to participate in the conversation on Twitter. On the left-hand side of the screen, you'll see the ongoing conversation using the RSPS15 hashtag. Additionally, we'll be conducting a few interactive poll questions with our attendees today. So when it's time to participate, you'll see the poll question appear in the slide view. Then just click on your selected answer. For those of you who might be new to Retail TouchPoints, here's a quick overview. We're an all-digital media company publishing a weekly email and online newsletter, daily news, special reports, and multimedia presentations. If you haven't done so already, please subscribe to our weekly newsletter. We welcome input and feedback through traditional means, phone and email, and also social media, LinkedIn, Twitter, and Facebook. Our website is www.retailtouchpoints.com. Before I introduce today's speaker, I want to remind the audience that the presentation is slated for approximately 30 to 40 minutes with time for live questions at the end. Again, we invite our audience to submit questions in the On24 questions area as they come to mind. Our presenter has agreed to stay online following the presentation to respond to your questions. And I also want to point out just a few other housekeeping items. The webinar is being recorded, and all attendees will receive an archive link to the presentation to go back and review or share with colleagues. The presentation also will be available via SlideShare. So our presenter today is David Schrader, Director of Product Development at Empower. David specializes in application design and delivery and has spent the last 10 years inventing, delivering, and managing products in the internal organizations that support them. Areas of focus have included global application delivery, retail lead and sales tracking, demographics and psychographics profiling, and most recently workforce collaboration and optimization. And he most recently served as Vice President of Program Management at Channel Intelligence Inquired, which was acquired by Google in 2013. So with that, I'm going to turn the presentation over to David. Welcome to you, David.
Thanks so much, Debbie. Really appreciate it. And thank you guys for spending time out of your very busy schedules to join us today. I feel honored to be able to present this stuff to you. I'm very passionate about mobile in general and become very, very interested as I've now moved into this particular type of business with workforce management and how mobile can help with all those aspects. It's become very, very interesting to me, so I'm very passionate about this subject and was really excited about this opportunity to share some of these results with you. My goal is to move through this at a relatively quick pace because your time is very precious, and I want to give you back part of your day if at all possible. Hopefully it'll be entertaining along the way. So mobile in the workplace, what are you so afraid of? I named it this primarily because we still are in a period of time where there are mixed views on this. I want to share those with you. So we're going to do a quick background of the survey, why it went out, when it went out, things like that. Some demographics about those who participated and gave responses. And two sides, right? There's two sides to every story. But in this case, there's actually 3 and 4 sides, too. There's some other voices that we'll talk about. And at the end, we'll put it all together and wrap it up and hopefully a nice little bow for you. So a survey snapshot, looking at the background for the survey, back in April, Debbie sent an email out on behalf of Retail TouchPoints out to the readership asking if they could participate or were interested in participate in what is the true value of a mobile-enabled associate. And 150 people responded. The reason it says 120 is because I've quickly noticed in looking at the raw data that 30 people didn't get past the first question and I guess got too busy and went back to their normal days. So we have 120 people who actually provided answers back. We take a look at what made up those 120 people. We found that roughly 2/3 were women. Over 80% was 50 years of age or older. And the largest segment in the verticals was specialty retail, with the second largest segment being other, which I assume is comprised of the rest of the readership that are not in necessarily specifically near specialty retail. Could be consultants, could be people in grocery. They were all bucketed up into other, but specialty retail was the predominant category here. So I just wanted to frame up the responses you're seeing are coming from this particular type of set. So jumping right into it, are you currently using mobile? And that was really how the survey started, trying to understand, are you using it or are you not? And what we saw was it still leans towards the no. 60% of people are not using mobile, and 40% are either just starting or have already been using mobile for a while. So starting with the largest demographic, and I actually love this, my designer I asked him, please find me a graphic that looks like somebody saying no, and that's what he came up with. So this is, let's take a look at those who said no. When asked, it didn't say what are you so afraid of, but that's how I think about it. Why are you not embracing mobile? The number one by far reason was the fear of distractions. But it comes in two forms. Actual distractions, those that are typically things that are coming like personal emails or texts or phone calls or something like that. But right on its heels in number two was perceived distractions. And that's the worry that even if you might be working on something that's work-related, a customer may not think that's true and assume the worst, which would give a negative shopping experience. There were a handful of other issues, but they paled in comparison to the distractions, and that was things like device damage for companies that may be providing their own devices, data security issues, if they're concerned about what type of data might be coming through the applications that they're using, and then a smaller set around legal concerns, which, depending on what side of the country you're on, especially out in California, that legal concern is actually growing a bit. So what I did was I started wondering about what do my friends and colleagues here, what are their experiences like? Just to kind of get the other side of it, because this was so tailored towards the people running business, I was interested in those that are interacting with those businesses. So I sent an email out to as many people as possible, and I asked them who has had a memorable store experience involving an associate or manager using a mobile device, good, bad, or ugly. And I got a lot of different responses. But the one that I wanted to share in this section of the presentation was the one that everyone seems to fear. Vicki said, I walked into an electronics store, and for once I actually did need some help being pointed in the right direction. Typically there are greeters, but not this morning, so I looked around for help. There was one associate who was in the corner, so you couldn't really see him, and he was smiling and typing it into something into his phone. Smiling at the phone, not at me. So it might have been work-related, it might not, but it looked bad. So I stood there looking at him, felt like around 30 seconds, he looks up and his face turns bright red, and he nearly drops the phone and says, I'm so sorry. Did you need something? I asked about where I could return something, and he redirects me to the other side and apologizes again. And this encapsulates, I believe, that big red circle from the previous slide, this concern about a negative shopping experience because the person feels the associate is not working and is doing something that's selfish. When, as consumers, that's what we're doing. We're going in to do something selfish for us. So looking to those who have said yes, because most of the questions were around those who were using it and what kind of benefits they were getting, so far more were there. So what we want to do is ask, what are they doing? So you're using mobile, but how? What was the point? The two biggest reasons were the ability for associates to see product price and info, and as well as to have access to coupons and any promotions that a particular consumer may be expecting to have to validate. And the second positions were things like team communication, task management, and in-store product location. And team communication and task management are typically things that are less associate to consumer interactions, but more employee to employee interactions or employee to management interactions, which is another growing trend amongst these apps that are mobile in the workplace. And in-store product location is similar to product price and info, but it really is coming from typically a different part of your back-end applications. And then we have things like employee recognition, cross-channel shopper data. So you might be able to interact with a customer who's standing in front of you and find out that they've actually do most of their purchasing online through the online part of your business. Scheduling, so an employee has access to their schedule when they're not working. Employee education programs, and also a growing trend in point of sale, trying to make sure that if for whatever reason there's a backed up lines and you want to be able to help a customer, you might be able just to do a transaction right there in the middle of the store. But what you see here is the sizing of the bubbles. It relates to the majority of people who are, what are they actually doing? Oh, sorry, there was the last one here. Clocking in, clocking out, very small, and I think a lot of that has to do with the fear of making sure that they're clocking in, clocking out where they're supposed to be, and then also this loyalty and program sign-up. Another question was asked about each one of these and asking them what was the likelihood of expanding, either starting or expanding on this particular type of stuff, and what it found is over the next 12 to 18 months, every single one of these was expected to grow on average about 20%. So it looked like there's a lot of different uses, and each one of those uses is growing. So again, with the question that I asked everybody about the good, bad, and the ugly, I was able to look at some of those responses and tie them back to the things that the respondents of the survey were using mobile for. So that same person, Vicky, in the exact same trip to that electronics store where she had to do the return, she had an exact opposite experience when she reached a different associate. So she said, on the very same trip to that store, I was casually browsing the Bluetooth speakers when I was approached by a sales associate. He recommended a specific option, but there was no floor sample. On top of that, they only seemed to have turquoise and pink, but not the black or gray, which I'd prefer. He checks stock right there on his phone and says that he should have a black one in the back. He takes a turquoise one off the shelf, pulls it out of the box, and makes sure it's charged, pairs it with his own phone, and has sample songs already loaded for me to choose from. He leaves the phone right there with me so I can listen to the speaker while he goes and finds a black one just in case. The sound turns out to be really amazing. I never would have guessed. When he comes back, we test out another speaker using his phone again, and ultimately I buy the one he recommended in the black color that I preferred. I walked in only to return something and walked out with a new Bluetooth speaker. I was really impressed. And that just speaks to how the same exact person in the same exact store interacting with two different associates can have two completely different experiences. And obviously this one right here is the one that we all want to see more of. Another friend of mine named John, he was referring to his local home and garden store. He was there last weekend. An associate used a mobile device to quickly verify available stock for some light fixtures that he needed. Said the additional stock turned out to be really high up on their shelving, which is the reason why I know he told me he couldn't see it. And having that device provide the associates with the ability to confirm the product was there before he went and tried to retrieve a ladder and climb up and get the product. And the big value to John was not only did he get the product, but he really sped up the whole process and prevented him from having to go find it somewhere else. Even got some responses in the dining arena. From the consumer's perspective, Carissa said when she's is dining at finer establishments, she really likes it when waiters can leave a tablet containing a wine list with ratings and information about each wine. It really helps the selection process. But in the same eating out perspective, Greg has a completely opposite in the same kind of thing. He tried out a new restaurant in town for the first time, and after being seated, the waiter comes by and simply drops off an iPad for them to order. no, is this your first time here, or here's how this works, or do you have any questions type thing. He just said it felt very robotic. He said very, very odd. He's all for technology, but very odd. So 2 examples of how something that seems so similar can have really different results depending on the context at which the mobile technology was used. Helping someone be able to supplement the experience by providing something that no human, unless you have a master sommelier there, can help with, but each wine, the pricing, all that kind of stuff, that's a wonderful experience, is what Chris is depicting here. But Greg, going into a place for the first time, never having been there, doesn't really know the menu, maybe has some questions, just interacting with a screen instead of human was a very bad experience. That same Greg, though, the next weekend was in a clothing store with his wife, and he was telling me a story about how she was rifling through a rack of clothes looking for a specific size and color. An associate noticed, came over, began interacting with her, and long story short, found the item out of stock, was offered it up for free, offered to ship it for free, ran the credit card transaction right there. He was happy because it sped up the process. His wife was thrilled because she got the thing she thought for a moment she wasn't going to be able to get until that person turned around and made everything available for her, and free shipping, which was made them both happy. And it was an everybody wins type of scenario. So same person, same weekend probably, 2 different times interacting with mobile, 1 positive, 1 negative. And I think you see that a lot. So I wanted to ask you guys, in general, higher level, and obviously I can't get specific experiences from you, although I'd love to. So if you could send me emails afterwards with them, I'd love to read them. But from a high level, how would you rate your own experiences as a customer of businesses employing mobile tech? Would you consider it awful? You've yet to have a good experience? Poor? Handful of good ones, but mostly bad? Okay, about 50-50, some good, some bad. Encouraging? Mostly good, but still some bad. Or would you consider just flat out awesome? All great, or at least good? We'll give it about a minute here to collect some responses. Should have asked for Jeopardy music. Okay, we got about over 50%. Yeah. All right, let's take a look at what we got. All right. Pretty good. Okay, so mostly leaning towards the okay, and then equal parts on awesome versus awful, and you got that. But it's nice to see that encouraging and okay. And I would tend to agree with that, actually. If I was answering this myself, I would probably be in between encouraging and okay. I'm always very perceptive to any time I see mobile tech, because I like that. I like technology. I like it being used, and I'm also very interested in when it works, and just as much as when it doesn't work, to try to keep an eye on it. And I see it probably around the encouraging, getting to encouraging, but it's probably around okay today. But personally, I like to see that the effort is being made. So thank you very much, guys, for participating. So how's it going, right? Getting back to now the respondents for the survey. We saw all the different ways they were trying to use it and what they were using it for, the product information, all the way down to punching in and everything in between. So how's it actually going? Well, it fell into 3 different categories. The first one being employee to customer improvements. And those improvements came in the form of higher conversion rates, increased basket size, uptick in loyalty members, and also a belief that there's better one-on-one interactions between employees and customers. And that by far was the largest benefit gain reported back. The second biggest gain was employee to manager communication. So better communication between employees and managers, making it more efficient, allowing them to communicate and get information more real time, and information that be necessary to keep both parties on the floor versus management or employees in the back room. And then lastly, this is kind of a growing thing because it's newer, just straight employee benefits, increased retention rates, better brand advocates, and increased use of educational programs. Because when you can get those programs into the palm of their hand, the opportunity to get get some time spent on them goes dramatically up versus more traditional ways of having to go possibly find a laptop or a desktop or, heaven forbid, have to do training at the actual facility. Bringing it into the palm of their hand where they spend most of their time anyway on their phones is always going to be better. The other side of this was that in all three of these categories, there was a belief that employee engagement was rising, regardless of whether it was employee to customer, employee to manager, or the employee themselves. A belief in better employee engagement was happening because of mobile. And that's really important. And the reason why is if you take a look at any of the surveys that are out there around employee engagement, whether it be Gallup or the Hay Group or Carnegie Mellon or Gartner, when they talk about employee engagement, the types of stats they're referring to now are very, very encouraging. 40% upticks in employee performance, 18% upticks in customer satisfaction, 22% upticks in profitability, 37% downturn in turnover for employees, which helps you keep your best people and also keeps the training costs down when you have to retrain or not retrain, but train brand new people because of turnover. And also 48% less safety incidents, depending on if you have that concern in your business. And these stats are coming from those guys. We pulled some from Gallup, from Gartner, from Hay Group. They all have done their own individual research on employee engagement. They all saying the same thing in different ways, which is if you can engage your people more, you're going to reap the rewards for doing so. So one last little piece of information about how it's being used. For those that are actually using mobile in the workplace, 2/3 of the people of companies are currently providing devices to the employees, whereas 1/3 have their own BYOD type of programs, and BYOD meaning bring your own device. And that's something to keep in mind too, right? Because with bring your own devices, you have less control over the types of things that they can have running at any given time, whereas a company-provided device, you can control more of exactly what information you want to have available to them. So I'm actually surprised to see that 1/3 was that bring your own device was still was 1/3. It seemed pretty high. And for the devices that were actually handed out, it's about half and half. So it really it's representative of the everyday world. About half is iOS and about half is Android. But what about customers, employees, right? This was that other voices part of the deck I wanted to talk about. So the survey was specifically around those that were running the business, but I wanted to take a look at some other surveys that were from the actual customers and employees, and more than just the stories that I got from my colleagues and my friends. This was data that I wanted to pull from other areas to kind of give an idea of what the other parties think about mobile in the workplace. And so there's three profiles here I wanted to pay attention to. There's the customers, obviously, which is very, very important, if not the most important. Then you've got your employees. But then if you want to break your employees out into associates and managers, we also have managers as well. And we pulled some information from a shopping study done last year by Motorola Solutions, as well as one from Integrated Solutions for Retailers, how mobile engagement is reinventing brick and mortar retail. And we could piece them together to look to see the interactions between these groups. And the first thing that popped out was 55% of customers say they are likely to favor a store with advanced mobile capabilities. And what's interesting about that is only 27% of the same people said they've actually experienced it already. So half of those people are actually projecting a world that they haven't experienced inside of a store, yet they assume it's going to make it better because, and this is my own personal opinion, is that if a phone has made my own life better, how can it make my shopping experience better? So I just thought that was interesting and wanted to share it. 55% of customers say they're likely to favor a store, with only half of them having already experienced it themselves. And it went on to actually to describe what that means by favor. And he broke it into 4 categories. Favor meaning 24% more likely to drive further to that store versus competitors. 20% more willing to pay a little more per visit. Pay a little more. 39% saying they would be most likely buying more per visit. And then 66% said they would most likely just shop more in general with that particular retailer. These are all good numbers. Then on the other side, you see employees. 65% of employees believe they could better service their customers if they were mobile empowered. And these two things tying together speak to this connection. You've got customers that are expecting it, wanting it, and you've got employees who overwhelmingly believe that they can do a better job being mobile empowered. The second part of the employees is interesting, is 75% of employees believe that their management could be more effective at managing employees and operational processes if they were empowered with better technology and information. I thought that was interesting, especially when you're talking about making it easier for managers to manage. When employees are the ones who are actually voting for it, it puts, because one of the great parts about mobile technology is it gets managers out of the back offices and onto the floor where they can be far more effective at managing people, managing customers, managing the day-to-day process, getting them out there to do what they're best at. And then tying it all together, managers themselves, 56% of store managers believe more real-time information could better ensure customer satisfaction. So again, I wanted to bring over some thoughts from the other parties at play here, because it's not just about the company and what they hoping is going to happen. It's also about what the expectations are of the customers and employees themselves. So what does this all mean? So if we look at putting this all together, there's three main points that I want you to walk away with. One is it seems to be one huge primary concern when it comes to mobile, and that's the concern about distractions, both actual as well as perceived. They can create a negative customer experience, and that is not something any of us want. The second thing is that there is an expanding uses and benefits. So those who are using it, even though they're in a minority, they are using it for lots of different reasons, lots of different ways, and a lot of these ways are very engaging as it comes to the employee, as well as engaging as when it comes to the actual customer themselves. And then lastly, there is a growing expectation amongst both your staff, your employees, as well as your customers. They themselves are openly expressing their interest in mobile, in their actions, as well as in these surveys that we're seeing. So it feels like it's becoming a matter of when, not if anymore, as it pertains to mobile. So, wrapping up, where do we go from here? If you're thinking about a solution, there were three things that popped into mind that I think we should all care about very, very much. The first one is, whatever you pick, it needs to be ridiculously simple. And what I mean by that is, get in, get out. Mobile is not designed, especially in the workplace, it's not designed to be something that you stand there and stare at. It should be get in and get out, very little training. It should just work. It should just be easy. That's the world we live in today. If you take a look at, every one of you has a phone, I'm sure of it, and every one of you has decided which apps are going to live on your front page. And these are the apps that are the most important to help you in your everyday life. I'm willing to bet that one of the reasons why you've chosen certain apps over others is because it's ridiculously simple. And that type of thing we want to carry into the workplace for all of its benefits. The second thing is it needs to be very purposeful. And what I mean by that is it plays hand in hand with simple, but purposeful means I'm going in to do something. I need to get in and do it fast, quick, and make sure that the benefits of that meet the intended goals. So if I'm working on the floor and someone needs to be able to find the price of something, an example of something that's very, very purposeful is opening up a bar scanner, scanning it, getting the actual price back, and being able to share with them the price within 3 seconds or less. That's very purposeful. It's also very simple, but it's purposeful. Something that you go in and you have to weed through a bunch of information to find something that may be of interest, that's not purposeful. That's Facebook. If you want to go browse through Facebook looking for something that's interesting, that's Facebook. It's entertaining, but it's not purposeful. And business needs purposeful. And last but not least, it needs to be engaging, primarily for the employee for all the benefits we talked about before, but also needs to allow engagement between managers and employees, managers and customers, as well as employees and customers. Create a way to make everyone happy and everyone useful. And happiness comes in lots of different forms, right? So when you go back and take a look, if I walk into a store and I'm able to get help from somebody and purchase something that I wanted, that creates a level of satisfaction, of contentment, of happiness for me. And if mobile actually helped me through that, I associate that happiness with mobile. If the employee is able to see my appreciation, by being able to help get me what I needed, and they were able to do that more quickly and more efficiently using mobile, they associate that level of appreciation with mobile as well. When managers are able to get onto the floor and engage with customers as well as employees, and mobile is the reason they're able to do that, then they associate those benefits to mobile. So it's not surprising that there is an attraction for these parties to mobile, because not only because it's very useful in their everyday lives, but when you bring it into the business world, when done correctly, it actually makes everything more effective and ultimately better. And once again, I want to thank you guys so much for spending some time with me today. I want to move over into the question and answer portion of this. Hopefully that was insightful, or at least mildly entertaining.
Thanks, David. It was definitely both insightful and entertaining, so we appreciate it. And thanks to our
Great.
attendees for participating in the poll question as well. So we have some questions that I want to get to before we wrap up for the day and give people, as you said at the beginning, some time back in their day. So first question is, you mentioned California, and I was wondering if you could expand on how the labor laws in California are going to affect this movement towards mobile.
Sure, absolutely. Great question. So what we have found here at Empower with our own customers who are out there asking and inquiring about what are our thoughts and how are we going to help them out there, the primary concern is a very dynamic nature to the laws. They're changing frequently. They lean heavily towards the employee and making sure the employee has a certain set of rights. And they include things like if a person is interacting on their phone with company information while they're not working, they technically are working, so they deserve to be compensated. And what the spirit of these laws, and now we're going to get into my personal opinion because I'm not our legal representation by any stretch, but what seems to be happening out there is that the intent is to create better protection for employees so that they're not expected to be doing things that are beneficial to the company without any kind of compensation. And I think we can all understand why they're going that way. But making sure that we stay within the spirit of it is what's going to be important. So when you have an employee out there who wants to be able to get access to their schedule and wants to be able to pull out their phone and see when they're working next, that's not considered working, right? No one would say you need to pay that person for paying attention to when they need to work next, right? That's one side. But if a manager started sending out individual questions to an employee after they've clocked out for the day, and let's say they're messaging them saying, hey, did you get this particular thing done, or why did you do this, or whatever that may be, and there's an interaction there, then that starts to lean towards, well, that's very, very work-related, and it really wasn't initiated by the employee. So they didn't opt in for that. They're just reacting to something. And all the different things that are in between. So what we're working on is trying to make sure that we create a defensible opt-in type of situation where if, let's say, a person who wants to be notified when there's available shifts coming available because they want to work on Thursday and they're not currently working, we want to give them the ability to say, I'm interested in extra hours on Thursday. I want my phone to go off when a manager is looking for help. That's different. That's opting in. So we are, as well as everybody else, I believe, in this space, are getting our arms wrapped around what California is trying to do, but we expect that those same type of notions to grow beyond California. So we're trying to make sure, and all solutions need to be able to make sure that they create something that allows employees to get information that they want in a way that doesn't scare management from thinking they've got to pay them for it. Because there's lots of opportunities, and right now most customers are fearful that no matter what happens in a person's phone, it could possibly fall within that we need to pay them for doing it. And that's really not the spirit of that law.
Okay, yeah. So it sounds like, yeah, it could be a slippery slope, but there are reasons on both sides, and it sounds, good that you're addressing it, and the fact that, the issues are not just California issues, but are going to need to be addressed across the country. So thanks for explaining that.
They absolutely do. Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. Okay. All right. And I just want to remind our audience again, if you have any other questions that you'd like to submit, feel free to send them through the questions widget. And if we don't get to them, David will be able to access them later and respond to you on a one-on-one basis.
Absolutely.
So one of our attendees wanted to know if there's a difference in the type of mobile applications being used on employer-supplied devices versus bring-your-own devices. Do they differ?
They can. Sometimes when a company creates their own internal app, they may not make it available for anyone to use away from the office, let's say. So some strategies are, I'm going to build my own internal apps. They only work with my system. They do that for security reasons. They'll only run on the hardware that I create, and they're only accessible if they're on our own, let's say, wireless network, which is a very security-conscious way of doing things and has lots of different benefits. When you have apps that are designed to be on the bring-your-own-device type phones, then you have different types of concerns. Yes, you have security concerns, which can be handled with the apps can turn on features depending on whether you're on a wireless network or not, and they're getting more and more slick when it comes to that. So features turn on based upon geographical location and depending on what network you're connected to. But one of the big things to keep in mind about the bring your own device piece is how you're going to get the applications to those users. Do you go to the store? Do you do a private distribution through, I'd say, an Apple enterprise license, or through or passing it along through Google's method of delivering apps? So there's different things to take into consideration. But in general, whether you're building your own to put on your own device, building your own to put into a store, or using a third party's system that may sit on top of other applications that you buy from them, which is what we do, then the why you're using it doesn't really change. What's different is what access to data do you have and the security concerns that come along with those.
All right, terrific. Thank you. So a couple of things that you have touched on in your presentation, but maybe you can provide a little bit more detail on. And so maybe we can circle back for retailers who are still debating whether or not they're going to be providing mobile devices in store. What are some of the key questions that they should be thinking about asking their potential solution or technology providers when they're planning for this kind of implementation?
Well, if their big concerns are going to be around, let me go back to this slide here just for a moment, just because this one kind of frames up, in my opinion, what the three big ones are. Is if my current concern is about distractions, let's say, then really what I need to be asking is, how can you help me? And let's use the most likely scenario where distractions could possibly happen. I am letting my people bring their own devices, and I provided them an application that allows them to interface with all the necessary data to make their job better, easier, more engaging, all of those different types of things. What I would be asking is, how can you possibly help me prevent distractions? And the problem is that if I was being asked that question, the first thing I would say is provide your own device. Because by bringing in their own device, by nature, it is the biggest distractive force they have in their life, right? We live in a world now where the last time you saw a drunk driving ad was 15 years ago. Now it's text driving ads. That's the new fear, is people are staring at their phones, not doing what they're supposed to be doing. Well, the way you take care of that is you put a phone in their hands that doesn't have anything that's distracting at all. It only contains the information that you would want. So I would make sure I'd ask, can you build me an app that can live on my phones, connect to my systems, and work on whatever and work on what is the cheapest hardware I can get with the maximum amount of benefit. I don't want to buy iPhone 6Ss. I want to buy iPods, right? I want to buy iPod Touches. I don't want to buy the new Nexus 5. I want to buy whatever the lower one is for Google. So help me take care of my major problem, which is distractions. And in that scenario, it's going to be take the distractions away. I'd also be asking about from security and access to data, right? So from a security standpoint, how can you make sure that this only provides the right type of information at the right moment to the right person, right? Get it in there, make it simple, give them access to that, get the data that's not necessary, get it off the screen, make sure it's only the things that are necessary, and making sure that the information that's useful is actually there. Can you, Mr. Provider, can you help by bringing in, let's say, my point of sale data or my foot traffic data? How can you and maybe mix that with my forecasting data? Could you tell me that between 9 o'clock and 10 o'clock, we're actually, our sales are 2 times what they were expected, and what can I possibly do about that? Do I need to bring in new help? And if so, how can you get me in contact with people that may want to work? And all of those types of things. Mobile should be something that makes this whole process smoother and easier and gets it taken care of much more quickly. Those are the types of questions I would be asking any provider who I'm hoping is going to be able to help me introduce a solution or expand one.
So I think in part you answered the next question with your discussion about data, but are there different types of ways in which retailers are evaluating the success of their mobile initiatives? And I think that could depend on what their goals are going in.
Absolutely. I mean, so sometimes I could be going in for any one of these reasons. Let me go back to this other one real quick here. Let me frame this up. Everybody still sees this? Go through here. So these are the reasons why people are getting into it, right? Because they want to be able to these are the hard reasons. I want to be able to provide product and pricing. I want to be able to do coupons and this, and I want to be able to do, these are the things that they want to do. And then they start to look at the benefits that they're getting. Now, what I didn't have in here, because these are just the benefits that they were picking, there wasn't any really hard numbers that said I have specifically a uptick in conversion rates, or I specifically have a uptick in increased basket size. There's a current belief or hope that these are the things I'm going to expect to come out of here. Where the world's going to be going, right, because we live in a data-driven world, so where the world's going to be going is to directly tie those mobile actions to those outcomes. So if we go back for a moment to my buddy who's standing in Loft and with his wife and buying that shirt, then the ability for Loft to understand that there's a person, a specific associate at a specific time at a specific store looking up a specific type of shirt, and to be able to find out that it was out of stock, but it was out of stock there, was in stock nationally, be able to offer free shipping, send it out, and have that person, his wife, buy that, and then that same person be able to find their online stores or across whatever their shopping channels, the ability to start to tie mobile transactions to what the consumer's behaviors are after that is where I think you're going to start to see some players come into this space. Because there seems to be the beginnings of tracking the benefits, but the actual true benefits, I think, are going to come from better metrics tracking.
Mm-hmm. Yep, the ultimate goal, being able to track the entire shopping journey, right, from the couch to the POS and beyond. And I know that that's what a lot of retailers and solution providers are talking about in the industry right now, because that's the ultimate goal that we haven't quite reached yet, right?
Absolutely.
Right, so
I don't think it'll ever be there, but we can get there closer step by step, right?
Yeah, you have to have a goal to seek in order to try to get there. So it'll be interesting to see what happens. It's exciting to see what happens in the next several years in retail.
Absolutely.
So with that, I think we're gonna start to wrap up, and I want to let our attendees know they have a chance to chat with you and some other speakers in our series tomorrow at 3:30 p.m. Eastern Time. We're going to have a Twitter chat, and you can join the chat and chat using the hashtag RSPSchat. Again, tomorrow, Thursday, the 24th at 3:30 p.m. So please, I hope you'll join us to speak with David and some of our other presenters in the series as well. So that'll be a fun afternoon activity. And then I just want to ask everybody to keep in mind we have another session today at 2 o'clock p.m. With Retail Next, and it's called Optimizing the Shopper Journey, Best Practices for In-Store Analytics. I know analytics is definitely on everyone's mind right now, so hopefully you'll be able to join us for that. So once again, thanks, David. It was a great presentation, really interesting study that you did, and great insights that you shared. So thanks to you, and thanks to our attendees as well. Enjoy the rest of your day.
Thanks, everybody.